On the third floor of Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Ozzy Osbourne was lost again. His assistant Sophie was trying to give him directions over the phone, but Ozzy wasn't even listening. "Bloody hell, all these corridors look the same," he muttered to himself. He was 70 years old, but still that kid who couldn't find his way around a hospital. Then, through the half-open door of room 347, he saw something that made him stop. A poster. On the wall, massive, staring back with that iconic spaceman makeup. Ace Frehley. Ozzy's feet moved on their own, pulling him inside. In the room, facing the window in a wheelchair, sat a young man. 23, maybe 24. His hair was long, the kind you'd see backstage in the old days. But his body was so still, he looked almost like a mannequin at first glance. Only his head turned slightly toward Ozzy. His eyes widened. His lips trembled. Then, in a choked voice, he said, "Either you're not real, or I'm dead, and nobody told me." Ozzy let out a laugh, that familiar, chaotic cackle. "If this is heaven, mate, they need to fire the decorator. The floors are filthy." He set the flowers down on the side and walked in. "I'm Ozzy." "Who are you, son?" The young man couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. "I'm Ethan. Ethan Cross. And you're actually here." Ozzy sat down beneath the Ace poster. The walls were covered with guitars, album covers, old concert tickets. Kiss, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. But the biggest, most honored spot belonged to Ace Frehley. "Ace fan, huh?" Ozzy asked, eyes still on the poster. Ethan lowered his head slightly, as if he had so much to say but didn't know where to start. "Ace was everything to me," he finally said. His voice trembled, but there was fire in it. "When I was 9, my dad gave me my first Kiss album. Alive. When I heard Ace's solo, that moment, it was like fire. Something inside me ignited. I started learning guitar that day." Ozzy listened. Despite all his jokes and madness, he knew how to listen. Ethan continued. "I played every day for 10 years, day and night, learned every note, every trick Ace had. He paused, his eyes going distant. "I even had my own band. The Voltage Boys. Terrible name, but we didn't care. We just wanted to play." Ozzy noticed an old guitar in the corner of the room. Bright blue, a Fender Stratocaster. But it was covered in dust. The strings loose, as if untouched for years. "That yours?" he asked, pointing at it. Ethan looked, but there was only pain in his eyes. "It was," he said quietly. 18 months ago, stage accident. We were setting up. Me, my drummer Jake, and a few techs. A metal platform lost its balance. I was underneath." His voice broke. The room filled only with the hum of the air conditioner. "My spine snapped at the 5th vertebra. Doctors told me I'd never walk again." Okay, I accepted that. But then I lost my hands too. Nerve damage. I can move my fingers, but there's no strength, no precision. I can't even hold a guitar string. There were no tears, just emptiness. The silence of a man hollowed out. Ozzy's chest tightened. He'd met thousands of fans in his life, heard thousands of stories. But this was different. This was a stolen dream. He slowly stood, walked over to the guitar, and picked it up. He blew off the dust, touched the strings lightly. No sound, of course. It wasn't even in tune. "What was the last thing you played on this?" he asked. Ethan smiled, a painful smile. "Ace's Shock Me solo. The night before the accident. I nailed it. Jake even recorded it. Then everything ended." Ozzy set the guitar back down and crouched in front of Ethan. He looked him straight in the eyes, that wild but deeply serious gaze. "Listen to me, son. I've lost a lot in my life. Lost my mind a few times. My family nearly left me. Drugs, booze, every kind of hell you can imagine. But you know what? I'm still here, and I learned something. You can lose things, but you never lose your soul. You're still a musician, Ethan. Even if your hands can't play, your heart still does." Ethan closed his eyes. His lips trembled. But how? He whispered. How can I be a musician now? All I can do is listen. And every time I do, I remember everything I can't do anymore. Ozzy straightened up, pulled out his phone. He glanced at the screen, then back at Ethan. That old Ozzy grin crept across his face. You know, I lost a phone number once too. But this damn thing called social media comes in handy sometimes. I'm gonna show you something. But first, you gotta promise me. Promise you won't lose hope. Ethan stared in disbelief. What are you going to do? Ozzy smiled, already typing something on his phone. I'm calling a friend. Someone like you. Someone who knows about fire. Meanwhile, Sophie was in full panic mode in the hallway. Ozzy had been missing for half an hour, and now there were noises coming from room 347. When she burst in, she found Ozzy on the phone and Ethan with his eyes wide as saucers. Yeah, Ace, I'm serious. Cedars Sinai, 3rd floor. No, I'm not drunk. At least not right now. Yeah, I saw your poster. Yeah, it's your fan. No, we're not doing a gig in the hospital. Or maybe we are. I don't know. Just come see for yourself. He hung up and turned to Sophie. Tell me, Sophie, hospitals have electricity, don't they? Sophie stared at him, bewildered. Of course, Ozzy, but why? Ozzy waved his hand dismissively. Good. Because in a couple of hours, we're bringing in some equipment. Amps, speakers, maybe a few lights. Oh, and one of the greatest guitarists in rock history is coming. Make preparations. Sophie froze. Ethan still couldn't believe it. You just called Ace Frehley? For me? Ozzy walked over to Ethan's wheelchair, gave his shoulder a gentle pat. Listen, kid. You've looked at that poster of Ace every single day. You played every note he ever played for 10 years. You dreamed about him. But you never met him, did you? Ethan shook his head, eyes welling up. No, not once. Couldn't afford tickets to his show. Too expensive. I always said someday, but someday never came. Ozzy smiled, but this time it was soft, almost fatherly. Well, today is someday, because Ace is going to be here in 2 hours, and he's going to share something with you. You know those stories about the flaming guitar? All true. Ace showed me years ago. Now he's going to show you. Ethan's face lit up with disbelief and joy. But then reality hit again. But I can't play. My hands... Ozzy cut him off. Don't worry. We'll play. You'll feel it. Because music isn't just made with your hands, Ethan. Music is made here, he said, tapping his chest. And I promise you today, in this room, you're gonna feel like a guitarist again. 2 hours later, the 3rd floor of Cedars Sinai Hospital was unrecognizable. Security guards stood staring in disbelief. Nurses whispered in the hallway. Because the man stepping out of the elevator wasn't just any man. Ace Frehley, the legendary spaceman, emerged in his black leather jacket, sunglasses, and a guitar case in hand. Behind him came 2 techs, 2 large equipment cases, and a cart loaded with cables. Ozzy met him at the end of the corridor. The 2 old friends embraced, that heavy rock and roll kind of hug. You're actually insane, Ozzy, Ace said, grinning. A concert in the middle of a hospital? Ozzy shrugged. I've played in stranger places. Once in a Japanese bathroom. Well, long story. Come on, meet the kid. When they entered the room, Ethan's expression was beyond words. His eyes glistened, but he was smiling. His mouth hung open, but no sound came out. Ace Frehley had stepped out of the poster and into his room. Ace walked straight to Ethan, dropped to his knees, and extended his hand. Ethan tried to grip it with his trembling fingers. Weak, but sincere. Your name's Ethan, right? Ace said, his voice low but warm. Ozzy told me everything. The Voltage Boys, the Shock Me solo, and the accident. He paused, looking Ethan in the eyes. Look, son, I've seen thousands of guitarists in my life. Good ones, bad ones, incredible ones. But you know what? Most of them know the technique, but they don't know the soul. And if you know your soul, no accident can take that away from you. Ethan's voice cracked. But I can't play anymore, Ace. My hands, my fingers don't work. I can't even hold a string. Ace smiled, that famous, slightly mischievous grin. Who said you need to play? Today you're gonna watch. But while you watch, something's gonna ignite inside you, just like when you first heard it at 9 years old. And that fire will never go out, I promise. The techs began transforming the room. A small amp was placed by the window, cables wrapped around the walls. When Ace's guitar, that iconic white, star-shaped Les Paul, came out of the case, the air in the room changed. It was as if time itself had stopped. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off it. Is that the Budokan guitar? He whispered. Ace nodded proudly. That's right. 1977, Tokyo. This guitar's been through everything with me. Good days, bad days, wild nights, quiet mornings. And today, it's going to see something with you. He placed the guitar in Ethan's lap. Ethan touched it with trembling fingers, felt its weight, felt the warmth of the wood. His eyes filled with tears, but this time from happiness. My God, he said, this is real. You're real. Ace laughed. Yeah, kid, I'm real. And now I'm going to show you something. But first, Ozzy, you ready? Because this isn't just my show. Ozzy grinned, pulling a harmonica from his pocket. I'm always ready, mate. You know me. Nurses had gathered at the door by now. Even security came to watch. The hospital director had called Sophie asking what was going on, but Sophie had only said, Rock history is being made, sir. Ace strapped on the guitar, plugged it into the amp, and lightly brushed his fingers across the strings. When the first note rang out, the room trembled. That familiar, sharp, electric sound. Then Ace began to play. The Shock Me intro, Ethan's favorite. Notes danced in the air. The walls echoed. Ozzy joined in on harmonica, that wild, bluesy style of his. Two legends in a hospital room, turning a dream into reality. Ethan wasn't just watching. He was feeling it. In his fingers, even though they couldn't move, something stirred. Memory. Muscle memory. 10 years of practice. Every note opened a path in his brain. He closed his eyes and imagined. Imagined himself on stage, imagined his hands on the strings. And in that moment, even in a wheelchair, he was free. When they reached the solo, Ace stopped. He looked at Ozzy. Ozzy looked at Ace. They both smiled. Then Ace turned to Ethan. Now the real magic begins, he said. One of the techs brought over a small box. Inside was an old stage effects device. This, Ace said, opening the box, was my secret weapon in the 70s. People always asked, Ace, how does your guitar shoot fire? I'd just laugh it off. But the truth is, a little pyrotech, a little timing, and a whole lot of guts. A small metal attachment was mounted to the guitar's bridge. The tech repeated the instructions to Ace. Ozzy backed away to a safe distance. I'm telling you one last time, Ace. If you burn down this hospital, I was never here. Ace laughed. Relax, Ozzy. I'm a professional. Then he turned to Ethan. You ready, kid? Because you're about to see real fire. Ace played the highest note of the solo. At the exact same moment, a small, controlled flame shot from the guitar's bridge. Orange, blue, red. It only lasted 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds were burned into Ethan's mind forever. The room lit up. The walls glowed. Ace's face, even without the spaceman makeup, transformed into legend under that light. Ethan screamed. From joy, from shock, from excitement. Oh my God! Did you see that? Did you see that? The nurses were clapping from the doorway. Even security was smiling. Ozzy played the final note on his harmonica, and then they all laughed. Wild, free like children. Ace set the guitar down, walked over to Ethan, and gave his shoulder a gentle tap. That's it, he said. That's the fire. Not just on stage. Here, he said, tapping his chest. You may have lost your hands, but you didn't lose your fire. And that fire is what keeps you alive. Ethan was crying now. Tears streamed down his face, but he couldn't stop them. "Thank you," he said, his voice choked. "Thank you. I haven't felt this alive in years. It's like I'm me again." Ozzy came over, placed his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Look, son, life knocks you down sometimes. Knocked me down plenty of times. But you know what? I got back up every single time, because something inside me said, it's not over yet. It's not over for you either. Maybe you'll never play guitar again. Maybe you will, who knows? But music isn't just about playing. Music is about feeling. And you feel it. That's enough." Ace picked up his guitar again, but this time he didn't put it back in the case. He placed it in Ethan's lap. "This is yours," he said. Ethan was stunned. "What? No, I can't accept this. This is your most valuable." Ace cut him off. "It was. But now it's going somewhere even more valuable. With you. Sell it, don't sell it, hang it on the wall, I don't care. But every time you look at it, remember this. You're a guitarist. You always will be." The room fell silent. But this time it wasn't an empty silence. It was full of hope, love, and music. The techs packed up the equipment. The nurses returned to their duties. Security walked away with faint smiles. But Ozzy, Ace, and Ethan stayed in that room for a few more minutes. They didn't speak. There was no need. Ace looked at Ozzy. They both knew. Today, a life had changed. Maybe not physically, but spiritually. As Ozzy walked toward the door, he turned back one last time. "Ethan," he said, "one day, somehow, I'm gonna hear your story. Maybe in a book, maybe in a YouTube video, but I'll hear it, because I don't think your story's over. It's just beginning." Ethan smiled, the light in his eyes brighter than it had ever been. "I promise, Ozzy. One day I'll reach out to you, and I'll thank you. Again and again." In the hallway, walking toward the elevator, Ace asked Ozzy, "Why did you do this? I mean, I know you've got a good heart, but why go through all this trouble?" Ozzy stopped, that old, wise look in his eyes. "Because, Ace," he said, "I used to be that kid. My life was in pieces. I had nothing. Then someone gave me a chance. Someone believed in me, and that saved me. Maybe Ethan will never play guitar again, but maybe he'll do something else. Maybe he'll inspire others. Maybe he'll just live. But he will live, and that's enough." Ace nodded, smiling. "You're still crazy, Ozzy. But you're the good kind of crazy." Ozzy laughed. "The best kind, mate. The best kind." The elevator doors closed. But what they left behind that day, on the 3rd floor, in room 347, was a fire that would never go out. And Ethan Cross, sitting in his wheelchair, Ace Frehley's guitar in his lap, looked up at the poster on the wall. It wasn't just a poster anymore. It was a memory, a promise, a beginning. 6 months later, a video landed in Ozzy's inbox. The subject line was simple. "Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you, Ace." When he opened it, he saw Ethan. He was still in his wheelchair, but his face was glowing. "I wanted to show you something," Ethan said, smiling at the camera. "Remember how the doctors said the nerve damage is permanent? Well, after that, I went to physical therapy every day. Every single day. And a neurology specialist suggested electrical nerve stimulation therapy. An experimental treatment, no guarantees, but worth a try," he said. And look." He moved his fingers. Slow, trembling, but real. He could hold a pen. "I still can't hold a guitar yet," he said, his voice a little broken but hopeful. "Not enough strength. But the doctor said that in some patients, with intense stimulation and therapy, muscle strength can return over time. There's no 100% guarantee, but I'm trying. Because of you, I'm trying." A year later, a second video arrived. This time, Ethan had a guitar in his hands, the white Les Paul that Ace had given him. Shaky, yes. Slow, yes. But he was playing. The first 4 notes of the Shock Me intro. It wasn't perfect. There were pauses between the notes. Sometimes the strings slipped. But it was real. 12 months of treatment, Ethan said, his eyes welling up. Even the doctor was amazed. They said this treatment doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for me. And you know why? Because you gave me a reason. You reignited the fire. If you hadn't shown up at that hospital that day, I had given up. But you came. Ace came. And you reminded me. Some things never die. The soul never dies. Music never dies. The video ended. Ozzy saw the final message on screen. The Voltage Boys are getting back on stage. A small bar, a small stage. But to us it's like Madison Square Garden. Please come. Ethan. Ozzy smiled, turned to Sharon and said, "Pack the bags, love. We're going to a concert." And that night, far away, the story that began in a hospital room ended under the lights of a stage. Because true rock and roll never ends. It just continues with a new note.